Let me ask you something, and be honest. Have you ever found yourself bending over backwards for a guy, only to feel like the more you give, the less he values you? You start off strong, confident, full of life, and then somewhere along the way, you're walking on eggshells, craving his approval, and wondering why he's pulling away. If that's ever been you, this video is your wake-up call, because today, we're breaking down the 4 subtle things that kill your value in a man's eyes, and most of them happen without you even realizing it. But once you do, everything changes. When you meet someone new and feel a spark, it's natural to want to give. You're excited, you feel seen, you want to show up fully, available, caring, generous. So you lean in, you offer your time, you text first. You make yourself emotionally available. You maybe even cancel plans or rearrange your schedule so you can spend more time with him. You start thinking about what he needs, what he likes, what would make his day better. It's easy to fall into the mindset of, if I show him how amazing I can be, how thoughtful and supportive I am, he'll realize I'm the one. But what you don't realize in those moments is that this kind of overinvestment, especially early on, can actually backfire. Instead of creating a bond, it often disrupts the balance of energy and attraction. When someone hasn't earned that level of emotional effort yet, giving too much sends the wrong message. It tells him that your affection is available without effort, that your time is easily handed out, and that your standards can be bypassed if the feelings are strong enough. What began as a sincere gesture of connection starts to look more like desperation. Here's where the dynamic quietly shifts. At first, maybe he's flattered, he likes the attention, but as things progress, he starts to feel that the chase is over before it even began. That magnetic tension that builds when two people are gradually learning each other starts to flatten. There's no more mystery, no more unfolding. It's as if you've already handed him the final chapter of the book before he's finished reading the introduction. Men, like women, value what they earn. It's not about playing games or being emotionally unavailable. It's about pacing your investment with how much is being reciprocated. When you give too much too soon, you don't give him the chance to show up. You're already doing the emotional heavy lifting, anticipating needs, giving time, giving energy, sometimes even excusing bad behavior. But in doing all of that, you rob him of the opportunity to reveal his own level of interest and effort. At the heart of this overinvestment is usually a fear of losing him, fear that if you don't give enough, he'll pull away, or that someone else might take your place. That fear pushes you to lean in even harder. You think, maybe if I show him how great I am, how much I care, he'll stay. He'll choose me. But what really happens is that you shift from being someone he's genuinely getting to know to someone who's constantly auditioning for a role he hasn't even asked you to play. Men don't fall in love through logic. They don't choose long-term partners simply based on how much they're given. They fall in love when they respect you, when they admire your boundaries, when they feel inspired by your presence, not suffocated by it. And they especially fall in love when they feel they've earned a place in your life, when they've put in the time, energy, and consistency to be close to you. Think of it like this. If someone gives you a priceless gift on the first day you meet them, your first instinct might not be appreciation, it might be confusion. Why is this person giving me so much? What do they expect in return? And worse, is this too good to be true? The same thing happens emotionally in early stages of connection. When you overgive, it feels off balance. Not because you're not worthy of love, but because it hasn't been built yet. You're fast-forwarding intimacy before trust and consistency have been earned. True connection is not a race. You don't need to prove your value in a matter of days. In fact, when you're calm, self-assured, and able to let things unfold naturally, it speaks volumes about your emotional confidence. That quiet strength is what makes people lean in. When a man senses that you're interested but not desperate, open but not overbearing, warm but not rushing, he begins to wonder about you, he pays attention, he shows up, he respects your time because you clearly do too. Overinvesting also leads to resentment, because let's be honest, when you're doing all the work and not getting that energy back, it hurts. You start to feel unappreciated, invisible, or used, and then you spiral. You wonder what's wrong with you, when in reality, the imbalance started the moment you gave more than was being reciprocated. Not because you're not enough, but because you gave too much of your enough before it was asked for. The best relationships are co-created. They grow with shared effort, shared interest, and shared vulnerability. So instead of asking yourself, what more can I give to make him stay? Ask, is he showing me that he values what I've already given? If the answer is no, step back, breathe, realign. Your presence, your time, your love, it's a privilege. Let someone earn it. In the early stages of dating or even within a relationship, it's tempting to let things slide. You really like him. You see the potential. Maybe he's charming, funny, ambitious, or just makes you feel something you haven't felt in a long time. So, you begin to make little compromises. He shows up late to a date and doesn't acknowledge it. You let it go. He cancels plans last minute, and you say, "It's okay, I understand." He pulls away emotionally, but instead of asking why, you double down on your efforts to keep him engaged. These moments might feel small individually, but over time they add up. What's actually happening in these quiet decisions is something much bigger. You're teaching him how to treat you. You're showing him how little he needs to show up before you start adjusting yourself to keep him around. This is where losing your standards begins. Not in dramatic moments, but in the tiny places where you choose peace over truth, attraction over alignment, and connection over respect. You start to silence your needs because you're afraid they'll scare him off. You stop expressing what you really want in a relationship because you don't want to seem too much. You accept inconsistency, emotional unavailability, or even disrespect under the hope that if you're just patient enough, things will change. But what's really happening is that you're slowly, silently betraying yourself. People mirror the energy they receive. If you consistently show someone that your boundaries are flexible, they will treat them that way. If you show them that your standards can be lowered just because you feel something strong, they will start believing that your self-respect is negotiable. And that belief slowly chips away at the foundation of attraction. Because deep down, we all admire people who stand for something. When you have clear, non-negotiable standards and you enforce them calmly and confidently, it shows strength, it shows self-worth, and it sets you apart. There's a big difference between being open-minded and being passive. One is rooted in confidence, the other in fear. A confident woman can be patient, understanding, and flexible without ever giving up her standards. But a woman who fears losing someone will often shrink herself just to keep the peace. The danger is there. In the process, she starts to lose the very essence of what made her magnetic in the first place. Her ability to say, "This is what I need, this is what I deserve, and I'm not afraid to walk away if it's not met." Losing your standards doesn't always look like obvious self-abandonment. Sometimes it shows up in more subtle ways, like agreeing to a casual relationship when you know you want something serious, or pretending to be okay with inconsistent communication when deep down it makes you anxious, or downplaying your desire for commitment because you don't want to scare him. What's dangerous about these compromises is that they don't just impact how he sees you, they impact how you see yourself. Every time you override your standards to keep someone interested, you reinforce a belief that love must be earned through sacrifice, that you need to adjust, shrink, or prove your worth. But real love, healthy, lasting love, doesn't require that. It's not about becoming smaller so someone else feels comfortable. It's about being fully you and letting the right person step up to meet that. A man who is ready for something real doesn't get scared by a woman with standards. He respects it. He sees it as a sign of emotional maturity and strength. But when you begin compromising on the things that truly matter to you, you not only lose his respect, you also begin to lose your own. And self-respect is the cornerstone of all confidence. Without it, you'll constantly feel unsettled, no matter how much he likes you. It's important to remember that standards aren't about control or ultimatums. They're not about trying to force someone to act a certain way. They're simply about you being clear on what you need to feel safe, loved, and valued, and not being afraid to walk away if those needs aren't being met. When you abandon those standards for the sake of keeping someone, what you're really doing is sending the message, my desire to be with you is stronger than my commitment to myself. And that message is powerful, but not in the way you think. It doesn't make him stay. It makes him question your value, not because you aren't worthy, but because you aren't acting like you are. The most magnetic people are those who are rooted in who they are, who know what they want, who aren't afraid of being alone because they know solitude is better than settling. And the truth is, when you stop negotiating your standards for the sake of someone else's potential, you start attracting people who don't need convincing, people who meet you at your level without needing to be chased, fixed, or persuaded. When you start seeking constant validation from a man, it often comes from a place you might not even be fully aware of. It stems from insecurity, fear, or a past experience that left you questioning your own worth. Maybe in the beginning things were amazing. He was texting every day, calling, making plans, making you feel seen. And then something shifted. He got a little distant, his messages slowed down. The connection didn't feel as secure, and instead of pausing and anchoring into your own self-worth, you started looking to him for reassurance. You asked more questions, became hyper-aware of his moods, and started interpreting every action or lack of action as a reflection of how he felt about you. The problem with this cycle is that it becomes self-fulfilling. The more you need him to prove how he feels, the more emotionally dependent you become. Your mood starts to hinge on how he responds to a text. If he replies quickly, you feel good. If he's distant, you feel anxious. And slowly you begin to lose control of your emotional equilibrium. This is what constant validation seeking does. It puts your sense of self-worth into someone else's hands. And no matter how much a man likes you, that kind of pressure can become exhausting. At first he may try to reassure you, he might say the right things, offer comfort and help settle your fears, but over time, when validation becomes something you continuously need rather than occasionally appreciate, it starts to wear on the dynamic. What once felt like an enjoyable connection now feels like a job, where he's responsible for managing your emotional stability. That weight can begin to change how he sees the relationship. It shifts from romance to responsibility, from excitement to obligation. And eventually, that pressure becomes too much. What's hard to see in those moments is that the validation you're craving isn't actually about him. It's about you. You're trying to soothe a part of yourself that doesn't fully believe it's enough, at least not without his constant approval. So you look to him to tell you that you're still wanted, still interesting, still valuable. But the truth is, no one can consistently fill that gap for you. And when you make someone else the source of your validation, you put your emotional well-being in a place that's always outside your control. There's nothing wrong with wanting to feel chosen, appreciated, or loved. That's human. But when you need those feelings to come from him constantly in order to feel okay, the relationship loses its balance. Instead of bringing your full self into the space, you start bringing your fears. Instead of leaning into connection, you begin managing your anxiety. Every conversation becomes about decoding what he meant, how he feels, and whether you're still enough in his eyes. And that takes you out of presence. You stop enjoying the relationship and start trying to secure it. So that kind of emotional chasing doesn't just feel heavy for him, it's draining for you too. Because deep down, you know you don't want to be with someone just because you convince them. You want to be chosen freely, genuinely, consistently. But that kind of love only grows when you're able to relax into who you are, not when you're trying to perform emotional gymnastics to keep someone interested. When you base your confidence on how someone else treats you on any given day, you lose your inner anchor. One bad text, one offhand comment, one delay in response, and suddenly you're spiraling, wondering what you did wrong, what you should change, how you can fix it. You start adjusting your behavior to avoid discomfort rather than being your authentic self. You stop expressing your needs clearly out of fear that they'll push him away. And ironically, that fear often becomes the thing that creates distance in the first place. The way out of this cycle isn't about caring less, it's about caring for yourself more. It's about remembering who you were before he showed up. The woman who had goals, friends, passions. The woman who didn't need constant reminders to feel secure because she knew her worth without anyone needing to spell it out for her. That version of you still exists. She's just buried under layers of doubt that were never yours to carry. And here's something most women forget when they're in the middle of this dynamic. Confidence isn't the absence of insecurity. It's your ability to sit with the insecurity without needing to react to it, to feel the discomfort, the doubt, the anxiety, and still show up grounded. Still express yourself honestly. Still give the other person space without making it mean something about you. That's what real emotional maturity looks like, and that's the energy that creates real attraction. Men are drawn to women who feel safe within themselves. Not perfect, not emotionless, just emotionally stable. Someone who can say, "I noticed a shift, can we talk about it?" rather than panicking or over-explaining or questioning her own value. When you come from that place, you create emotional safety for both of you. You show him that you can handle the waves of a relationship without needing constant rescue, and that kind of woman stands out. Seeking validation is a human tendency, but when it becomes a pattern, it disconnects you from your power. You don't need a man to tell you who you are. You need to remember who you are. Because when you show up from that place, confident, calm, clear, you stop chasing validation. You embody it. And the right man will recognize that energy, not because you asked him to, but because he feels it the moment you walk into the room. One of the most subtle yet destructive ways you can diminish your value in a man's eyes is by abandoning your identity the moment you start liking him. It usually doesn't happen all at once. At first it might look like something innocent. You skip your workout because you want to hang out. You postpone a call with your friend because he's suddenly free. You start spending more weekends at his place and less time pursuing your own interests. Slowly, your life starts revolving around him. Your schedule, your energy, even your mood becomes tethered to his attention. At first, he might not even notice. He enjoys the time with you. But over time, something shifts. What used to make you magnetic, your independence, your purpose, Your passion starts to fade into the background. You stop being the woman who inspired him and instead become the woman who orbits around him. And while he may not be able to articulate it clearly, he starts to feel something's missing. The dynamic becomes one-sided. He becomes the center and you become the support. That imbalance can quietly kill attraction. What draws a man in deeply is the feeling that you have a life that is rich and fulfilling, with or without him. That you are a whole person before he even enters the picture. When you start sacrificing that wholeness to be more available, more agreeable, or more aligned with his world, you don't become more attractive. You become less compelling. You start to lose the very essence of what made him gravitate toward you in the first place. Think about the moments when you felt most confident, most alive. Maybe it was when you were working toward a personal goal, laughing with your closest friends, creating something you're proud of, or standing firm in your truth. That energy, that fire, is your essence. It's what makes you captivating. And when a man sees that, he respects it. He might not say it out loud, but he notices. He's drawn to that self-contained power. Now imagine trading all of that just to be more available for him. Imagine dulling your shine to keep his attention. What message does that send? It tells him that you don't value yourself enough to protect your own world. It tells him that your life takes a back seat to his availability. And even if he never says a word about it, his respect for you will slowly erode. Here's something that's hard to accept. Being too available makes you look replaceable, not because you aren't special, but because it signals that you're willing to abandon yourself for love. And the moment you do that, the dynamic changes. You're no longer the prize. You're no longer the woman he's chasing or trying to earn. You're just there, convenient, predictable, safe, but not in a good way. This doesn't mean you should play games, ignore him, or create artificial distance. That's not confidence, that's manipulation. What it means is that your life should continue to grow, evolve, and thrive regardless of what stage your relationship is in. If he texts you to hang out and you already have plans with friends, go out with your friends. If you've got goals you're working on, keep working on them. Don't pause your progress to make space for someone who hasn't proven they deserve that level of access. Men don't fall in love because you rearrange your life for them. They fall in love with women who are rooted in something deeper than the relationship itself, a purpose, a mission, a sense of self that isn't easily shaken. That stability becomes a grounding force. It's what allows a man to trust that you're with him because you choose to be, not because you need to be. And that choice is powerful. The irony is, when you protect your identity, you actually create more space for intimacy, because you're not constantly trying to mold yourself into the perfect partner. You're not draining yourself to fit into his world. You're meeting him as an equal. Two people fully alive in their own lives, choosing to walk together. That's the kind of connection that lasts. When you lose your identity, you don't just lose his respect, you lose your own. You start to forget what made you happy before he came along. You stop investing in your dreams. You stop making time for the people who fill your soul. And eventually, even if the relationship continues, you wake up feeling disconnected, not from him, but from yourself. That's the real loss. You are not meant to shrink to fit into someone's life. You are meant to expand and invite someone into yours. When you stay true to your identity, you attract a man who doesn't just admire you, he values you. Not because you cater to him, but because you inspire him. Not because you make him your whole world, but because you show him how beautiful a whole world can be when it includes, but does not revolve around someone else. You don't have to choose between love and identity. The right love will never ask you to. It will meet you in your fullness, not your sacrifice. So stay connected to the things that light you up. Protect your time, your space, your dreams. Let a man fall in love with the woman who has her own life and is willing to share it but never give it away. That's the kind of woman who leaves a lasting impression. That's the kind of woman he'll never forget. When it comes to love and connection, your value isn't determined by how much you give, how available you are, or how much you bend to keep someone interested. It's rooted in how deeply you respect yourself. The moment you start tolerating behavior that makes you feel small, seeking constant reassurance to feel worthy, or losing your sense of identity just to hold on to a man, you begin to chip away at the very things that make you powerful, magnetic, and unforgettable. A man who is truly worthy of you won't be drawn to a version of you that is watered down or anxious for approval. He'll be drawn to the woman who stands tall in her standards, anchored in her worth, emotionally self-sufficient, and fully alive in her own life. So don't be afraid to say no to the wrong energy. Don't be afraid to walk away from anything that requires you to abandon yourself. Because the moment you choose you, the right man will too.